Vivian Ashford threw a $100 bill at the groundskeeper's feet. "Pick it up," she said. "That's more than you're worth." Marcus Bennett didn't move. His 8-year-old daughter Emma stood behind him, gripping his work-stained shirt. 6 world-class mechanics had failed to start the $15 million vintage supercar. The billionaire heiress was desperate and cruel. She laughed in his face. "You think you can fix it? Fine, start it and I'll marry you." The mechanics burst out laughing. Marcus stayed silent. But 10 seconds later, when thunder shook the entire estate, no one was laughing anymore. What happened next will stay with you forever. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. You don't want to miss what comes next. The bill landed at his feet like an insult made of paper. $100. Crisp. New. The kind of money Vivian Ashford probably spent on coffee without thinking. Marcus Bennett looked at it. He didn't bend down. "I said pick it up." Vivian's voice was ice and entitlement. "Consider it payment for wasting my time." "I haven't wasted anything, ma'am. I just walked past." "You stopped. You looked. That's enough." Emma's small hand tightened on his shirt. Marcus could feel her trembling. She hated confrontation. Always had, ever since Rachel died. "We'll be going now," Marcus said quietly. "No." Vivian stepped closer. Her heels clicked against the garage floor like a countdown. "You'll pick up that money first. I don't like things lying on my floor." Hans Mueller, the German mechanic, shifted uncomfortably. "Miss Ashford, perhaps we should focus on the car." "Shut up, Hans. You've had 2 hours and accomplished nothing." She never took her eyes off Marcus. "At least this one can provide entertainment." Marcus met her gaze. He'd faced worse. Congressional committees, Pentagon generals, men who could have him killed with a phone call. This woman had money and cruelty, but she didn't have power over him. Not anymore. Not since he'd given up everything that made him visible. "I'm not picking it up," he said. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "The money. I'm not picking it up. You dropped it. You pick it up." The garage went silent. The 6 mechanics, flown in from Germany, Italy, Japan, 3 countries and 3 fortunes spent on their expertise, stared at the groundskeeper like he'd lost his mind. Nobody talked to Vivian Ashford that way. Nobody. Her father had built Ashford Technologies from nothing. Satellites, defense contracts, telecommunications infrastructure across 4 continents. When he died 3 years ago, Vivian inherited everything. The company, the estate, the power, and the absolute certainty that everyone around her existed to serve her needs. She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile.
"Do you know who I am?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you know I could fire you right now?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you know I could make one phone call and ensure you never work in this state again?" Marcus paused. He thought about the small cottage on the edge of the estate, the garden where Emma grew tomatoes, the routine they'd built, breakfast together, school drop-off, his grounds work while she was in class, homework help in the evenings, bedtime stories about her mother. 6 years of peace. 6 years of invisibility. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I know." "Then pick up the money." "No." Emma whispered. "Daddy?" He squeezed her hand gently. "It's okay, sweetheart." Vivian laughed. It was a sharp, brittle sound. "My God, the groundskeeper has a spine. That's almost charming." She turned to Hans. "This is more entertainment than you've provided. Maybe I should have him look at the car instead." The mechanics exchanged glances. One of them, Takeshi from Tokyo,
actually rolled his eyes. "Miss Ashford," Hans said carefully, "with respect, this is a 1961 Ferrari 250 GT, one of 7 ever made. The ignition system alone is worth more than most houses. We need more time to—" "Time?" Vivian spun on him. "I have 90 minutes before 300 guests arrive for the charity auction. This car is the centerpiece. Edward Blackwell is flying in specifically to bid on it. He's been trying to acquire one for 20 years. If this car doesn't run, the auction falls apart. If the auction falls apart, I lose $200 million in pledges, partnerships, and my father's reputation." She was breathing hard now. Marcus saw something flash behind her eyes. Not just anger. Fear. "So no, Hans, you don't have more time. You have no more time. You've failed. All of you have failed." The storm outside was getting worse. Thunder rolled across the estate like a warning. Emma tugged Marcus's shirt. "Daddy?"
Not Mouse, sweetheart. "But Daddy, the car."
"Emma, please." She fell silent, but she was staring at the Ferrari with that look Marcus knew too well. The tilted head, the slightly unfocused eyes, the listening. Vivian noticed. "What's wrong with your daughter?" "Nothing's wrong with her. She's staring at my car like she's having a seizure." Marcus's jaw tightened. "She's fine." "She doesn't look fine. She's fine." The word came out harder than he intended. 6 years of buried anger compressed into 2 syllables. Vivian stepped back, surprised. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Emma spoke. Her voice was soft, almost dreamlike. "The car is crying." Takeshi snorted. "What?" "Inside. The car is crying. It wants to run, but something's hurting it. Can't you hear it?" Hans knelt down to Emma's level, not unkindly. "Little one, the car isn't making any sound. It won't start. Not that kind of sound." Emma looked at him with her mother's dark eyes. "The inside sound. The one machines make when they're sad." Vivian laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Perfect. The groundskeeper's daughter is insane. This night keeps getting better." "Don't talk about my daughter that way." Marcus's voice was quiet. Dangerous. "Or what? You'll quit? Please, you're replaceable. Everyone here is replaceable." She gestured at the mechanics. "These so-called experts are replaceable. My entire staff is replaceable. The only thing that isn't replaceable is that car. And it's broken." Lightning flashed outside. The storm was almost on top of them now. Emma whispered, "It has 2 heartbeats, Daddy." Marcus froze. "The car. It has 2 heartbeats. But they're fighting." He looked at his daughter. Really looked at her. She was 8 years old, and she'd inherited something from him. Not his training, not his education, but something deeper. The ability to hear what others couldn't. Rachel used to call it his engineer's ear. The way he could walk into a room full of running machinery and know instantly if something was wrong. Not from readings, not from data, from sound, from rhythm, from the subtle harmonics that computers couldn't quantify, but human intuition could feel. Emma had it too. Maybe stronger than he ever did. 2 heartbeats fighting. Marcus closed his eyes. He listened. The garage was full of ambient noise. The storm outside, the hum of fluorescent lights, the breathing of 8 people, the distant thunder. But beneath all of that, there, so faint he almost missed it, a whisper of electromagnetic discharge, a phantom frequency, something that shouldn't be there. His eyes snapped open. "You installed something new on this car," he said. Vivian frowned. What? Recently, within the last month. Something electronic that wasn't original to the vehicle. Hans stepped forward. That's impossible. This car is completely original. Every component has been verified authentic for the auction. There's a GPS tracker, Marcus said, hidden somewhere in the dash or under the hood. Modern. Probably for insurance purposes. It's emitting a frequency that's interfering with the ignition timing. Silence. Then Vivian laughed. You're joking. I'm not. You're a groundskeeper. Yes, ma'am. You mow lawns and trim hedges. Yes, ma'am. And you're telling me, with 6 of the world's best mechanics standing right here, that you've diagnosed a problem none of them could find? From 10 feet away, without touching the car? Yes, ma'am. The mechanics were staring at him now, really looking. Takeshi had stopped rolling his eyes. Hans was frowning thoughtfully. Even the Italian mechanic, Paolo, had put down his diagnostic tablet. I have to say, Hans murmured, there was a GPS tracker installed 2 weeks ago. Insurance requirement for the auction, but it was positioned according to manufacturer specifications. It shouldn't cause any interference. Where was it positioned? Marcus asked. Under the dashboard, left side. That's too close to the original ignition coil. These cars had a known sensitivity issue. The electromagnetic signature from a modern tracker would create harmonic interference with the coil's firing pattern. The car thinks it's starting, but the signal is getting disrupted before it reaches the spark plugs. Paolo whistled softly. Madre di Dio. Vivian's expression had shifted. The mockery was still there, but underneath it, uncertainty. And something else. Hope. She hated that. Marcus could see her hating it. This is ridiculous, she said. You expect me to believe a gardener knows more about vintage Ferraris than experts who've worked on these cars for decades? I don't expect you to believe anything, ma'am. I'm just telling you what I hear. What you hear from a car that isn't running. Yes, ma'am. You're insane. Maybe. Thunder cracked overhead, so close the lights flickered. Vivian turned to Hans. Is he right? Hans hesitated. I don't know. It's theoretically possible. The electromagnetic interference theory is sound, but to diagnose it without any equipment, just by listening. He shook his head. That's not engineering. That's impossible, Vivian finished. She looked at Marcus again. This time her eyes were calculating. Okay, groundskeeper. You want to play expert? Prove it. Ma'am, I don't want to play anything. I just want to take my daughter home. No! You made a claim. Back it up. She stepped toward him. Fix my car. I'm not a mechanic. You just diagnosed it like one. Diagnosis isn't repair. Then find someone who can repair it. She was standing very close now, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Expensive, complicated, like everything about her. Or maybe you're all talk. Maybe you just wanted to look smart in front of your daughter. Emma was still staring at the car, still listening. Daddy, she said quietly, the crying is getting louder. Marcus looked at her, at the car, at the 6 mechanics who had failed, at the billionaire who would destroy his peaceful life out of spite if he walked away, at the $100 bill still lying on the floor between them. I can fix it, he said. Vivian smiled, that cruel smile again. Oh, really? I'll need a screwdriver and something to shield the tracker. Aluminum foil would work. Anything conductive. Aluminum foil, she laughed. You're going to fix a $15 million car with aluminum foil. It's not about what you use. It's about understanding the problem. This is insane. Probably. If you break anything, I'll sue you for every cent you'll ever earn. I'll take your house, your savings. Your daughter will grow up knowing her father destroyed their future because he couldn't keep his mouth shut." Emma flinched at that. Marcus felt rage surge through him. Hot, familiar. The kind of anger he'd spent 6 years learning to control. "Don't talk about my daughter," he said. "Don't threaten my daughter. You can threaten me. You can sue me. You can destroy me. But don't bring her into this. She's already in this. She's standing right here. Then let me send her inside while I work." "No." Vivian's smile widened. "She stays. She watches. She sees her father either succeed or fail in front of all these people. That's the deal." Marcus's hands were trembling, not from fear, from the effort of keeping himself still. Rachel's voice in his head. "You always had a temper, Marcus. You just hid it well. Promise me you'll never let it out around Emma. Promise me she'll never see that side of you." He'd promised. 8 years ago, holding Rachel's hand in the delivery room, he'd promised. "Fine," he said. "She stays." Vivian turned to one of her assistants. "Get him what he needs. Screwdriver, aluminum foil, whatever this lunatic wants." 2 minutes later, Marcus had a Phillips head screwdriver in his hand and a roll of kitchen foil in his pocket. He walked toward the Ferrari. The mechanics moved aside. Hans was watching with something like fascination. Paolo was muttering prayers in Italian. Takeshi had his phone out, recording. "Put that away," Vivian snapped. "No documentation of this. If he destroys the car, I don't want evidence that I allowed it." Takeshi lowered the phone reluctantly. Marcus stopped beside the car. He didn't touch it yet, just listened. Emma came to stand next to him. "The crying is in the front, Daddy, behind the pretty part." The dashboard. "I know, sweetheart." He opened the driver's door. The leather interior was perfect, preserved for 60 years, worth more than his cottage. He slid into the seat carefully. Under the dashboard, on the left side, he found the GPS tracker, modern, sleek, completely out of place in this vintage masterpiece. He didn't remove it. He couldn't. It was wired into the car's electrical system, and pulling it out might cause more damage. But he didn't need to remove it. He pulled out the aluminum foil, tore off a sheet, wrapped it carefully around the tracker, making sure to cover every surface. A makeshift Faraday cage. Simple, elegant, something any first-year engineering student would understand. But none of the experts had thought of it, because they were looking at data, at screens, at diagnostics. They weren't listening to the car. "Done," he said. Vivian raised an eyebrow. "That's it? Aluminum foil?" "That's it." "You're joking." "Try the ignition." She stared at him. The mockery was still there, but it was wavering. She was scared, he realized. Scared that it wouldn't work. Scared that it would. Scared of what it meant either way. "Fine." She walked to the car. "Move," Marcus stepped out. Emma reached for his hand. Vivian slid into the driver's seat. Her hands were shaking, just slightly, just enough for Marcus to notice. She reached for the key. "Wait," Marcus said. She froze. "What?" "When it starts, and it will start, the engine's going to need a moment to stabilize. Don't rev it immediately. Let it breathe." "Let it breathe," she laughed bitterly. "You and your daughter, talking about cars like they're alive." "They are alive. Every machine is. They have rhythms, patterns, personalities. You just have to pay attention." "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." "Then prove me wrong. Turn the key." Thunder rolled overhead. Closer now. The storm was directly above them. Vivian turned the key. For one agonizing second, nothing happened. Then the engine roared to life. Pure, powerful, perfect. 60 years old and running like the day it left the factory. At that exact moment, thunder cracked so loud the windows rattled, the lights flickered, and everyone in the garage felt it in their chests. Emma laughed. "The car is happy now, Daddy. Can you hear it? It's singing." Vivian sat frozen in the driver's seat. Her hands were gripping the steering wheel like she was afraid she'd fall if she let go. The mechanics erupted, shouting, checking instruments, running diagnostics. Hans was staring at his tablet in disbelief. "The interference pattern is gone. Completely eliminated. How did he—" Vivian stepped out of the car. She walked toward Marcus slowly, her heels clicking that countdown rhythm again. She stopped in front of him. "Who are you?" she asked. "Nobody, ma'am. Just the groundskeeper." "Don't lie to me. Not now. Not after that." Her voice was different. The cruelty was still there, but it was cracked now, broken open by something she didn't understand. "Who are you? Really?" Marcus looked at his daughter, at the Ferrari, purring contentedly behind them, at the $100 bill still lying on the floor. "I'm Emma's father," he said. "That's all that matters." He took Emma's hand and started walking toward the exit. "Wait!" Vivian's voice stopped him. "I said I'd marry you if you started it. Did you forget?" Marcus turned back. "You were mocking me, ma'am." "I was, but I said it, and I'm a woman of my word." "I don't want your hand in marriage. I just want to go home." "What do you want?" He thought about it. Really thought. "Pick up the money," he said. "What?" "The $100 bill. You threw it at me. You wanted me to pick it up." He met her eyes. "Now I want you to pick it up." The mechanics were watching. Everyone was watching. Vivian Ashford, billionaire heiress, CEO of a global technology empire, daughter of a legend, stood there in her designer clothes and her expensive perfume, being asked to pick up money from the floor by a man in dirty work clothes. Her face flushed, her jaw tightened, but she bent down, slowly, carefully, and picked up the bill. She straightened up, the money in her hand, and looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't read. "There," she said. "Happy?" "Yes, ma'am." "Now will you tell me who you are?" "Good night, ma'am." He walked out of the garage with his daughter, leaving behind a running Ferrari, 6 stunned mechanics, and a billionaire holding a $100 bill like she'd never seen money before in her life. The storm raged around them as they walked back to the cottage, but Emma was smiling. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "The car said thank you." Marcus smiled despite himself. "Did it?" "Yes. And the lady?" Emma paused, thinking. "The lady's heart is broken, Daddy. Not like the car. Broken different. Can you fix that too?" Marcus didn't answer, but as they walked through the rain, he thought about Vivian's eyes in that last moment. The fear beneath the cruelty, the loneliness beneath the power. He thought about Rachel, who used to say that the angriest people were usually the saddest. He thought about what it cost to be invisible for 6 years, and whether some things were worth being seen for. Lightning flashed overhead, and for just a moment, the whole estate was illuminated. The mansion, the gardens, the cottage where they lived, and somewhere behind them, a garage where a woman stood alone, holding a $100 bill, listening to an engine run perfectly for the first time in weeks. Thunder rolled across the sky, but this time it sounded almost like an answer. The next morning came too early. Marcus had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Vivian bending down to pick up that $100 bill. The look on her face, the crack in her armor, and Emma's words, "The lady's heart is broken, Daddy." He made breakfast the way he always did: scrambled eggs, toast with strawberry jam, orange juice in the plastic cup with the faded Disney princesses that Emma refused to give up even though she was 8 now. Rachel had bought that cup. It was one of the few things they still had from before. "Daddy, you're burning the eggs." Marcus snapped back to attention. Smoke was rising from the pan. He cursed under his breath and moved it off the burner. "Sorry, sweetheart. Daddy's tired." "Because of last night?" "Yeah, because of last night." Emma climbed onto her chair at the small kitchen table. Her feet didn't quite reach the floor. She swung them back and forth while she waited. "The lady called," she said. Marcus froze. "What?" "The phone rang while you were in the shower. I answered it. The lady from last night. She wants to see you." "Emma, you know you're not supposed to answer the phone when I'm not here." "But it kept ringing and ringing, and the lady sounded sad." Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. Of course Vivian had called. Of course she couldn't just let it go. What did she say exactly? "She said, 'Please tell your father I need to speak with him.' She said please 3 times, Daddy. I counted." Please. Vivian Ashford saying please 3 times. The world was ending. Did she say anything else? "She asked my name. I told her. She said Emma is a pretty name. Then she asked if I really heard the car crying or if I was just pretending. I said I wasn't pretending. I said machines talk all the time, but most people don't listen." She got quiet for a long time. Then she said please again and hung up. Marcus served the slightly burned eggs onto Emma's plate. She didn't complain. She never complained. "Am I in trouble, Daddy?" "No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble." "Are you in trouble?" He sat down across from her. "I don't know. Maybe." "Because you fixed the car?" "Because I fixed the car when I should have stayed invisible." Emma tilted her head, the same way she did when she was listening to machines. "Why do you want to be invisible, Daddy? Invisible people are lonely." Marcus didn't have an answer for that. After breakfast, he walked Emma to the estate's back gate, where the school bus picked her up. He watched until the yellow bus disappeared around the curve of the long driveway. Then he stood there for another minute, just breathing. 6 years. 6 years of careful invisibility. Of being nobody. Of cleaning up after people who never looked at him twice. And in one night, he'd thrown it all away. "Mr. Bennett!" He turned. Vivian's assistant, a young man named Thomas, who always looked like he was 3 seconds away from a nervous breakdown, was walking toward him. "Miss Ashford would like to see you, immediately." "I have work to do." "Miss Ashford said to tell you that your work can wait. She also said to tell you that she's not asking." Marcus looked at Thomas. The young man was sweating despite the cool morning air. "What happens if I say no?" Thomas swallowed. "Please don't say no, Mr. Bennett. I really need this job." Marcus sighed. "Lead the way." The walk to the main house took 10 minutes. Marcus had been inside exactly twice in 4 years. Once for his initial job interview. Once to fix a burst pipe in the basement when the regular plumber couldn't come. Both times, he'd kept his head down and left as quickly as possible. Now Thomas led him through the front entrance, up a sweeping staircase, down a hallway lined with paintings that probably cost more than his lifetime earnings, and finally, to a set of double doors. Thomas knocked. "Miss Ashford? Mr. Bennett is here." "Send him in." Thomas opened the door and practically pushed Marcus through before fleeing like his life depended on it. Vivian's office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate grounds. A massive desk dominated the center of the room, and behind that desk sat Vivian Ashford, looking like she hadn't slept any better than Marcus had. She was holding a file. "Sit down, Mr. Bennett." I'd rather stand. I said, sit down. And I said, I'd rather stand. Their eyes locked. Neither blinked. Finally, Vivian smiled. It wasn't the cruel smile from last night. This one was almost impressed. Fine. Stand. I don't care. She opened the file. Marcus James Bennett, born in Detroit. Father was a factory worker. Mother was a nurse. Graduated high school at 16. Full scholarship to MIT. Graduated top of your class in mechanical engineering at 22. Marcus said nothing. Recruited by Northfield Defense Systems. Worked on classified military projects for 6 years. Published 3 papers on acoustic engineering that are still considered groundbreaking. One of your professors called you the most intuitive mechanical mind of his generation. She looked up from the file. You are going to change the world, Mr. Bennett. You are on track to become one of the most important engineers in the country. And then, nothing. You disappeared. Fell off the face of the earth. Resurfaced 6 years later, applying for a job as a groundskeeper at my estate. She closed the file. Why? Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not your business. I'm making it my business. You work for me. That makes your past my business. I trim your hedges and mow your lawn. That doesn't give you the right to dig through my life. I disagree. She stood up and walked around the desk. Last night you embarrassed 6 of the best mechanics in the world. You fixed a problem that stumped experts with a screwdriver and aluminum foil. You made me pick money up off the floor in front of my own staff. She stopped in front of him. I need to know who you are. Really. Why? Because I don't like mysteries, and because I'm considering offering you a job. Marcus laughed. He couldn't help it. Something funny? You threatened to destroy my life last night. You mocked my daughter. You threw money at my feet like I was a beggar. And now you want to offer me a job? I was having a bad night. So was I. But I didn't treat you like dirt. Vivian's expression flickered. For just a moment, Marcus saw something behind her eyes. Not anger, not arrogance. Something raw, wounded. Then it was gone. I'm offering you a position as senior mechanical consultant. You'd work with my engineering teams. Salary of $300,000 to start. Full benefits. Flexible hours, so you can still be there for your daughter. No. You haven't even thought about it. I don't need to think about it. The answer is no. Mr. Bennett, my wife died. The words came out before he could stop them. Hard. Flat. Like stones dropping into still water. Vivian went quiet. Her name was Rachel. She was an ER nurse. Worked nights so I could work days and someone would always be home with Emma. Except I was never home. I was always traveling. Always in some lab or some classified facility, working on projects I couldn't tell her about. I missed birthdays. Anniversaries. I missed Emma's first steps. I missed her first words. He paused. His throat was tight. Rachel called me one night. Emma had a fever. 104. Rachel was scared. She wanted me to come home. I said I couldn't. I was in Nevada, working on something urgent. I told her to take Emma to the hospital, and I'd be home as soon as I could. Mr. Bennett, you don't have to. 3 days later, I still wasn't home. The project ran long. There were complications. I kept telling Rachel, 1 more day, 1 more day. She stopped believing me, stopped asking, just handled everything herself. His hands were shaking now. She was driving Emma to a follow-up appointment. A drunk driver ran a red light, hit them on the passenger side. Emma was in a car seat. She survived. Rachel didn't. The office was silent. I got the call while I was in a conference room, presenting my findings to a room full of generals. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. I ignored it again. The third time, my supervisor answered it for me, annoyed that I was being interrupted. He listened for about 5 seconds. Then he handed me the phone and said, "You need to take this." Marcus looked at Vivian. Her face had gone pale.
The last thing Rachel said to me was, "I need you to come home." And I said I couldn't. Those were the last words I ever said to my wife. I can't. Silence stretched between them. "So no, Miss Ashford, I don't want your job. I don't want your money. I don't want to go back to that world. I spent 6 years building a life where I can be there for my daughter, where she knows that when she needs me, I'll be there. Not in a lab, not in a meeting. There. That's worth more than any salary." Vivian sat down heavily in the chair behind her desk. She looked diminished somehow, smaller than she had seemed last night. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "About your wife. About everything." "Don't be sorry. Just let me go back to my job." "Mr. Bennett." "Marcus, if we're going to have conversations like this, you might as well use my name." She nodded. "Marcus, She stopped, started again. "I know what it's like to lose someone." He waited. "My father, 3 years ago, heart attack." He was in his office, working late, like he always did, like he'd done for 40 years. I was in Singapore, closing a deal. My assistant called me, said I needed to come home. I said I couldn't. The deal was too important. Her voice cracked slightly. He died alone, in his office, surrounded by the empire he built, but completely alone. By the time I got there, they'd already taken him away. I never got to say goodbye. Marcus understood then. The cruelty, the armor, the desperate need to control everything. She was him. Before Rachel died. Before he learned what really mattered. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. Vivian looked up. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. He got the sense she hadn't cried in a very long time. "I don't know how to be different," she said. "I've been this way for so long. Hard. Cold. My father raised me to be this way. He said the world would eat me alive if I showed weakness. He said emotions were a liability." He was wrong. Was he? Look where being soft got you, mowing lawns for people like me. And look where being hard got you. Alone in a mansion, threatening groundskeepers because a car wouldn't start. She flinched, but she didn't look away. "Your daughter," Vivian said. "Emma. She really hears things, doesn't she? In machines." "Yes." "How is that possible?" "I don't know. She's always been that way, ever since she was little. She told our neighbor his lawnmower was tired 2 days before it broke down. She knew our car needed an oil change before the warning light came on. She just listens, and machines tell her things." "That's extraordinary." "That's Emma." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then, "She said something on the phone this morning. She said machines talk all the time, but most people don't listen. Is that something you taught her?" "No, that's something she taught me." Another silence. This one felt different, less hostile, more curious. "I meant what I said last night," Vivian said, "about the marriage thing. I know I was mocking you, but I always keep my word. If you ever want to hold me to it—" "I don't." "Of course you don't," she laughed bitterly. "No one would. Who'd want to marry a woman like me?" "That's not why." "Then why?" Marcus considered his words carefully. "Because you don't need a husband. You need a friend."
You need someone to remind you that success isn't the same as happiness. You need someone to teach you what your father never did, that showing weakness isn't the same as being weak. And you think you're that person? No, I think you need to find that person for yourself. But I'll be here if you need help along the way. Vivian stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something he didn't expect. She smiled. A real smile. Small and uncertain, like she'd forgotten how. You're a strange man, Marcus Bennett. I've been called worse. I'm sure you have. She stood up. Fine. Keep your groundskeeper job. Keep your invisibility. But I'm giving you a raise. I'm not asking. Consider it hazard pay for putting up with me last night. She extended her hand. And Marcus, thank you for fixing the car and for this. He shook her hand. Her grip was firm, but not aggressive. Different from last night. You're welcome, Miss Ashford. Vivian, if we're going to have conversations like this, you might as well use my name. He almost smiled. Vivian, then. He turned to leave. Marcus. He stopped at the door. Your daughter. She said my heart was broken. Did she tell you that? Yes. Does she know how to fix it? Marcus looked back at her. The billionaire heiress. The ice queen. The woman who had everything except the one thing that mattered. She might, he said. But you'd have to ask her yourself. Emma's good at broken things. She gets that from her mother. He walked out, leaving Vivian alone in her enormous office with her expensive paintings and her father's empire, and the file that told her everything about Marcus Bennett's past, but nothing about who he really was. 3 weeks passed. Marcus went back to being invisible. He trimmed hedges, mowed lawns, maintained the estate grounds the way he always had. Emma went to school, did her homework, helped him plant tomatoes in their small garden. Life returned to normal. Except it didn't. Because now, sometimes, when Marcus was working near the main house, he'd look up and see Vivian watching him from her office window. She never waved, never acknowledged him, just watched. And sometimes, when he was walking Emma to the bus stop in the morning, they'd find small gifts waiting at their cottage door. Books for Emma, coffee for Marcus. Nothing extravagant, just thoughtful. The lady is trying to say sorry, Emma said one morning, examining a new book about how airplanes work. She doesn't know how to use words for it, so she uses things. How do you know that? Because that's what you did with Mommy. When you forgot her birthday that one time. You bought her flowers every day for a week, remember? She said you were allergic to apologizing, but not to roses. Marcus remembered. He remembered everything about Rachel. Should I say thank you to the lady? Emma asked. That would be nice, sweetheart. Will you come with me? I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because being near Vivian Ashford made him feel things he'd spent 6 years trying not to feel. Because she reminded him of who he used to be. Because every time he looked at her, he saw someone who was exactly where he'd been before the accident. Successful, powerful, and completely missing the point. Because Daddy has work to do, he said instead. Emma gave him that look, the one that said she knew he wasn't telling the whole truth, but was too polite to call him on it. Okay, Daddy. She wrote a thank you note herself, drew a picture of the Ferrari with a smiley face, asked Thomas the assistant to deliver it. Thomas reported back that Miss Ashford had stared at the drawing for 5 full minutes without saying a word. Then she'd had it framed and put on her desk. Marcus didn't know what to do with that information. Then, on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after the garage incident, his phone rang. It was Vivian. "I need your help," she said. Her voice was tight, controlled, but underneath it, he heard something else. Panic. "What's wrong?" "Not on the phone. Can you come to the office? My office at headquarters, downtown?" "It's 9 o'clock at night. I have Emma." "Bring her, please, Marcus. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." He heard it then, the crack in her voice. The same crack he'd heard when she talked about her father. "I'll be there in an hour," he said. He woke Emma, bundled her into the car, and drove through the dark streets toward the glass tower that housed Ashford Technologies. Emma fell asleep in the back seat, clutching her airplane book. Marcus looked at her in the rearview mirror. "I hope I know what I'm doing, sweetheart," he said quietly. "I really hope I know what I'm doing." But deep down, he already knew the truth. He was done being invisible. The security guard at the front desk looked at Marcus like he'd lost his mind. "Sir, I can't let you up without authorization. It's after hours." "Call Vivian Ashford. She's expecting me." "Miss Ashford doesn't take calls from—" The guard stopped mid-sentence as his phone buzzed. He answered it, listened, and his face went pale. "Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am." He hung up and looked at Marcus with new eyes. 42nd floor. She said to come straight up." Marcus carried Emma, still sleeping, through the lobby and into the elevator. The ride up felt endless. His daughter's head rested against his shoulder, her breathing soft and steady. What was he doing here? 6 years of careful invisibility. 6 years of staying small, staying safe, staying invisible. And now he was walking into the heart of everything he'd run away from. The elevator doors opened. The executive floor was chaos. People rushed past him without looking. Engineers in rumpled shirts, executives with phones pressed to their ears, assistants carrying armfuls of documents. Everyone looked exhausted. Everyone looked scared. "Marcus!" Vivian appeared from a conference room. She looked worse than anyone. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her expensive blouse wrinkled like she'd been wearing it for days. "What's happening?" he asked. "Not here. Conference room. Bring Emma. There's a couch where she can sleep." He followed her down the hall. The conference room was packed with people. At least 15 engineers, plus several executives Marcus didn't recognize. Computer screens covered every surface, all showing different data feeds, graphs, diagnostic readouts. Vivian pointed to a leather couch in the corner. "She can sleep there." Marcus laid Emma down gently, covering her with his jacket. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. "Now, tell me what's going on," he said. Vivian led him to the main display. A 3-dimensional model of a satellite array rotated slowly on the screen. "The Aurora Project," she said. "Our flagship initiative. 12 satellites designed to provide global broadband internet access to underserved communities. 2 years of development. $4 billion in investment. We launched them 6 months ago." "I remember reading about it. The press called it revolutionary." "It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be my father's legacy." Her voice cracked slightly. "He started this project before he died. He believed technology should serve everyone, not just people who could afford it. Free internet for schools in Africa. Telemedicine for villages in South America. Emergency communications for disaster zones." "What went wrong?" "3 of the satellites are failing." She pulled up a new display. "They spin up normally, reach optimal operational capacity, and then crash. Complete system failure. No warning, no explanation." "Have your engineers diagnosed the problem?" "They've been working for 72 hours straight. Nothing. The satellites that work and the satellites that fail are identical. Same components, same software, same everything. There's no reason for the failures." One of the engineers, A gray-haired man with wire-rimmed glasses stepped forward. We've run every diagnostic protocol. We've checked every line of code. We've analyzed every component specification. The failures are impossible. But they're happening, Marcus said. Yes, they're happening. And if we can't fix them in the next 48 hours, we lose the entire project. Vivian took over. The consortium that funded Aurora, they're threatening to pull out. They've already called emergency meetings. If we can't prove the satellites are viable, they'll cancel the contracts and sue us for breach of agreement. The lawsuits alone would bankrupt the company. What about the board? The board is meeting tomorrow morning. They're going to vote on removing me as CEO. Her jaw tightened. They've been looking for an excuse ever since my father died. This is exactly what they wanted. Marcus studied the satellite schematic. Why did you call me? Because you fixed a car that stumped 6 world-class mechanics in 30 seconds. Because you heard something no one else could hear. Because I'm desperate, Marcus. I'm completely desperate. He looked at her. The Ice Queen was gone. In her place was a woman fighting for everything she had left. Her company, her father's legacy, her own sense of worth. I'm a groundskeeper, he said quietly. No, you're an engineer who chose to become a groundskeeper. There's a difference. I haven't done this kind of work in 6 years. I don't care. I'll take anyone who can help. Even if you just look at the data and tell me there's nothing to find, at least I'll know I tried everything. Marcus looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully on the couch. He thought about Rachel, about the choices that had led him here. I need 3 things, he said. Vivian straightened. Name them. First, I need audio recordings of the satellites when they fail. Not process data, raw audio of the transmissions. We have that. Peterson, pull the audio files. The gray-haired engineer nodded and started typing. Second, I need everyone to leave me alone while I work. No interruptions, no questions, no looking over my shoulder. Done. Third, he glanced at Emma again. When she wakes up, she stays with me. She's part of this. Vivian frowned. Your daughter? Marcus, this is highly technical work. She stays with me or I walk out right now. Their eyes met. After a moment, Vivian nodded. Fine, she stays with you. Whatever you need. Peterson handed Marcus a pair of headphones and pointed to a workstation. The audio files are loaded, all 12 satellites. The 3 that failed are marked in red. Marcus sat down. He looked at the files on the screen. Waveforms, timestamps, frequency analyses. 6 years of rust. 6 years of pretending this part of his brain didn't exist. He put on the headphones, and he listened. The first satellite sounded healthy. A steady pulse of data transmission, clean and regular, like a heartbeat. The second satellite, same thing, healthy, strong. The third satellite, the first failure. Marcus closed his eyes and let the sound wash over him. At first, nothing stood out. The same steady pulse, the same regular pattern. But then, there, so faint he almost missed it. A tremor in the transmission. Not mechanical failure, something else, something external. He pulled up the audio from the other failed satellites. Same tremor, same frequency, same timing. The satellites weren't failing because something was wrong with them. They were failing because something was happening to them. Peterson, the engineer hurried over. Did you find something? These 3 satellites, where are they positioned? Peterson pulled up a map. Here, here, and here. They're spread across the Pacific sector. What about the satellites that are working? Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and the remaining Pacific positions. Marcus studied the map. The 3 failed satellites formed a loose triangle in the Pacific. Something about the positioning nagged at him. Is there anything different about these locations? Geologically? Atmospherically? Not that we know of. The orbital paths were calculated specifically to avoid interference patterns. What about ocean currents? Peterson frowned. Ocean currents? These are satellites. They're in orbit. Yes, but they're monitoring the surface, collecting data. If there's something happening in the water below them... Daddy? Marcus turned. Emma was sitting up on the couch, rubbing her eyes. Hey, sweetheart, go back to sleep. I can't. The machines are too loud. Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing. What machines, Emma? She pointed at the screen showing the satellite array. Those. They're all talking at once. But 3 of them are scared. Peterson stepped forward. Young lady, those satellites aren't making any sound. They're in space. Not that kind of sound. Emma stood up and walked over to her father. The inside sound. Like the car. Remember, Daddy? The car had 2 heartbeats fighting. These 3 have something like that. Something's pushing them. Marcus pulled Emma onto his lap. Show me what you mean, sweetheart. Point to the ones that are scared. Without hesitation, Emma pointed to the 3 failed satellites. Peterson's face went pale. That's impossible. How could she know which ones failed? Marcus ignored him. Emma, what's pushing them? I don't know. It's big, though. Really big. And it moves in circles. Moves in circles. Marcus's mind raced. Ocean currents, circular motion, electromagnetic interference. Pull up the oceanic data for this region, he said. Everything you have. Thermal imaging, current mapping, atmospheric readings. Peterson typed furiously. A new display appeared, a complex visualization of Pacific Ocean conditions. There, Marcus pointed. What's that? A massive circular pattern dominated the center of the screen. A slow-moving vortex of thermal activity. That's the Pacific warm pool, Peterson said. It's a natural phenomenon. Warm water circulation pattern. Been there for thousands of years. Has it changed recently? Changed how? Size, intensity, position? Peterson checked the historical data. His face changed. Actually, yes. The pool has been intensifying over the past 6 months. Thermal output has increased by nearly 15%. 6 months. The exact time frame of the satellite failures. The warm pool is generating electromagnetic interference, Marcus said. As it intensifies, it's creating a disturbance pattern that's affecting the satellites directly above it. That's impossible. The satellites are designed to handle electromagnetic variations. They're designed to handle normal variations. This is abnormal. The pool is supercharging the upper atmosphere in that region. Your satellites are flying through an electromagnetic storm every time they pass over it. Peterson pulled up more data. His hands were shaking. Oh my God. The interference pattern. It matches the failure timing exactly. Every crash happened during a pass over the warm pool. Can you confirm? More typing, more data. And then Peterson sat back in his chair, looking like he'd seen a ghost. He's right. The correlation is perfect. The satellites are failing because of the warm pool. The room erupted. Engineers shouting questions, executives demanding explanations. Vivian pushing through the crowd to reach Marcus. Can you fix it? It's not about fixing the satellites. They're fine. You need to recalibrate their shielding protocols to handle the increased electromagnetic load. How? Add a frequency filter to the navigation software. It's the same principle as the Ferrari. You're dealing with interference patterns that are technically within normal parameters, but practically disruptive. Adjust the sensitivity thresholds by about 0.3%, and the satellites should be able to fly through the interference without crashing. Peterson was already typing.
I can have a software patch ready in 2 hours.
Do it, Vivian said. There's something else, Marcus added. The warm pool is going to keep intensifying. Climate change, ocean temperature rise. This isn't a one-time problem. You should build adaptive shielding into the next generation of satellites. Vivian stared at him. How do you know all this? I used to design propulsion systems for military satellites. Electromagnetic interference was always our biggest challenge. This is just bigger. Daddy, Emma tugged his sleeve. The scared ones are calming down. Marcus looked at the screen. The waveforms from the 3 failed satellites were stabilizing. Not because of any change to the satellites themselves, but because Emma was watching them. He didn't understand it. He never had. But somehow, his daughter's attention made machines behave better. Like they knew someone was listening. Peterson, Vivian said.
How long until we can test the patch? 4 hours for upload and verification.
Do it. Everyone else, take a break. Eat something. Sleep if you can. We reconvene at 6 a.m. The room slowly emptied. Engineers stumbled toward the break room. Executives made phone calls. Within minutes, only Marcus, Emma, and Vivian remained. Thank you, Vivian said quietly. Don't thank me yet. The patch might not work. It'll work. I know it will. She looked at Emma, who was tracing her finger along the satellite display. She's remarkable. She's 8. She's remarkable and she's 8. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Vivian sat down heavily in one of the conference chairs. How did you know about the warm pool? I didn't. I just listened. The satellites were telling me something was pushing them. Emma heard it first. That's not engineering. That's intuition, pattern recognition. My father was a factory worker. He could walk into any plant in Detroit and tell you which machines were about to fail just by listening. He didn't have a degree. He didn't have fancy equipment. He just paid attention. And he taught you. He taught me that machines talk. You just have to listen. Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then, my father never taught me anything like that. He taught me how to read balance sheets, how to negotiate contracts, how to fire people without flinching. He taught me that emotions were weakness and compassion was liability. He was wrong. Was he? Look at me, Marcus. I'm 36 years old. I run a multi-billion-dollar company. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And I'm sitting here at 3 in the morning, terrified that everything I've built is about to collapse. And the only person I could think to call was my groundskeeper. Former groundskeeper. She smiled faintly. Is that your way of accepting the job I offered? No.
That's my way of saying, I don't know what I am anymore. Emma climbed into Marcus's lap and yawned.
Daddy, I'm tired. I know, sweetheart. We'll go home soon. Can Miss Vivian come with us? Both adults went silent. Emma looked up at her father with Rachel's dark eyes. She's lonely, Daddy. Her house is too big and too quiet. She should come to our house. Our house is small, but it has good sounds. Vivian looked away. Marcus saw her swallow hard. Miss Vivian has work to do, sweetheart. But the scared machines are sleeping now. She said so. Everyone should rest. That's what you always tell me when I'm worried about something. You say worrying doesn't fix anything. Only rest and trying again does. She's got you there, Vivian said quietly. Emma. Please, Daddy? She can have my bed. I'll sleep on the couch. And tomorrow we can show her the tomato garden. Mommy always said tomatoes make everything better. The mention of Rachel hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. He saw Vivian react too, a flicker of something across her face.
Your wife said that? Vivian asked.
Mommy said lots of things. She said being kind costs nothing, but is worth everything. She said the best people are the ones who remember to be gentle, even when they're scared. She said Daddy needed to stop trying to save the world and start trying to save himself.
Emma, that's enough. But Daddy, I said enough.
Emma went quiet. She buried her face against his shoulder, and Marcus felt her breath hitch. Not quite crying, but close. He'd snapped at her. He never snapped at her. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to raise my voice.
I just wanted to help,
she whispered. I know. I know you did. Vivian stood up slowly.
She's right, Marcus. About all of it. I am lonely. My house is too big and too quiet. And I can't remember the last time anyone invited me anywhere, just because they wanted my company, not my money or my connections.
Vivian, but I can't come to your house tonight. Not because I don't want to, because I need to be here when the patch uploads. I need to see this through. She walked over to where Marcus sat with Emma in his lap. She knelt down so she was eye level with the little girl.
Emma, can I tell you something?
Emma peeked out from her father's shoulder.
Okay. You're the bravest person I've ever met. You walked into a room full of scared adults and told them exactly what was wrong, even though you're only 8 years old. That takes courage. Daddy says courage is just being scared and doing the thing anyway. Your daddy is very smart. I know, but he's also sad sometimes. He misses Mommy.
Vivian glanced up at Marcus.
I know he does.
Do you miss someone too, Miss Vivian?
Yes. I miss my father. Every day.
Does it get better? Vivian's eyes glistened.
I don't know, sweetheart. I'll let you know when I find out.
She stood up and stepped back. Marcus rose, lifting Emma with him.
You should go home, Vivian said. Get some sleep. I'll call you when the patch is tested.
You're sure you don't need me to stay?
I'm sure. You've done enough. More than enough. She paused. More than anyone has ever done for me.
Marcus nodded. He started toward the door.
Marcus, he stopped. That day in the garage, when I threw money at your feet. I've done that before. To other people. People who probably deserved it even less than you did. I thought that's just how power worked. You take what you want, and you don't apologize.
And now?
Now I think maybe there's a different kind of power. The kind your daughter has. The kind that makes people want to follow you, not because they're scared of you, but because they trust you.
That's not power. That's love. Vivian smiled sadly.
Maybe that's what I've been missing all along.
Emma lifted her head from Marcus's shoulder.
Miss Vivian? Yes, sweetheart? The machines like you. They're scared because you're scared. But they want to help. You just have to let them.
Vivian didn't respond. She just stood there, in the middle of her empty conference room, surrounded by billions of dollars worth of technology and all the loneliness money could buy. Marcus carried Emma to the elevator. As the doors closed, Emma waved goodbye, and for just a moment, Marcus saw Vivian wave back. A small, hesitant gesture, like she wasn't sure she remembered how. The drive home was quiet. Emma fell asleep again within minutes. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. He thought about Rachel, about the life they'd planned together, about all the ways he'd failed her without even realizing it. He thought about Vivian, about the woman she was versus the woman she could become. He thought about what it meant to be visible again, to use his gifts, to help people, to maybe, finally, start forgiving himself. His phone buzzed at 5:47 a.m. Vivian's name on the screen.
The patch worked,
she said. Her voice was thick with exhaustion, but bright with relief.
All 12 satellites are operational. The consortium is staying. The board meeting is canceled.
That's good news.
It's better than good news. It's a miracle. You saved my company, Marcus. You and your daughter.
We just listened.
That's more than anyone else did.
She paused. The board wants to know who consulted on the fix. They want to meet you, offer you a position. I'm not interested.
I know. I told them that. I told them you're a private consultant who prefers to work behind the scenes.
Thank you.
But Marcus, there's something else. Something I didn't want to say in front of everyone last night.
What is it?
My father kept files, private files, research he was working on before he died. I found them last month when I was cleaning out his office.
What kind of research? A new kind of propulsion system, something revolutionary. He believed it could change space travel forever, but he died before he could finish it, and none of my engineers can make sense of his notes. Marcus's heart rate increased. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you might be the only person who can, the only person who thinks the way he did. Another pause. I'm not offering you a job, Marcus. I'm asking for help. The same way I asked last night. Just look at the files. Tell me if there's anything there. If not, I'll never mention it again. Marcus thought about it, about the life he'd built, the invisibility he'd cultivated, the peace he'd found. Then he thought about Emma, asking if he could fix Vivian's broken heart. About Rachel, saying he needed to stop trying to save the world and start trying to save himself. About what it meant to really, truly listen, not just to machines, but to the people around him. Send me the files, he said. Really? Really. But Vivian.
Yes?
This doesn't change anything. I'm still a groundskeeper. I'm still Emma's father first. Nothing else comes before that.
I wouldn't want it any other way.
She hung up. Marcus sat in the darkness of his small cottage, listening to his daughter breathe in the next room. For the first time in 6 years, he felt like himself again. Not the version of himself that had hidden from the world. The files arrived at 7 in the morning. Marcus was making coffee when his laptop chimed. He opened the email from Vivian and stared at the attachments. 47 documents, hundreds of pages of research notes, diagrams, equations, and handwritten marginalia. Edward Ashford had been a brilliant man. That much was clear from the first page. But he'd also been obsessive, scattered. His notes jumped from concept to concept with no clear structure, as if his mind moved too fast for his hands to keep up. Marcus recognized the pattern. He'd been the same way, once. Emma wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas. "What's that, Daddy?" "Work stuff, sweetheart." "I thought you didn't do work stuff anymore." "I didn't, but things change." She climbed onto the chair beside him and looked at the screen.
That's a lot of numbers.
"It is."
What do they mean?
"I don't know yet. I'm still figuring it out." Emma studied the equations for a moment. Then she pointed at a diagram near the bottom of the page.
That part looks wrong.
Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?"
The circles, they're not balanced. See how this one is bigger than the others? It shouldn't be. They should all be the same.
He looked closer. Emma was pointing at a thrust vectoring diagram, a complex representation of propulsion force distribution. And she was right. One of the vectors was miscalculated. The asymmetry would create instability in any real-world application.
How did you see that? It just looks wrong, Daddy. Like when your shoelaces aren't the same length. It bothers me.
Marcus stared at his daughter, 8 years old, no engineering training, and she'd spotted a flaw that Edward Ashford, one of the most celebrated minds in aerospace, had missed. "You're something else, sweetheart."
"I know,"
she grinned.
"Can I have pancakes?"
He made pancakes. He walked her to the bus stop. He went back to the cottage and spent the next 4 hours buried in Edward Ashford's research. By noon, he understood what the old man had been trying to build. By 2, he understood why it hadn't worked. By 4, he had a solution. He called Vivian. "I need to see you," he said.
Is something wrong with the files?
"No, something's right with them. Very right. But I need to explain in person."
Come to the office. I'll clear my schedule.
"No, not the office. Somewhere private. Somewhere we can talk without being overheard."
Vivian was silent for a moment. The estate. The old greenhouse behind the main house. No one goes there anymore. Can you be there in an hour?
"I'll be there." He picked Emma up from school and drove to the estate. The greenhouse was exactly as Vivian had described, abandoned, overgrown, but somehow beautiful in its decay. Vines crept through broken glass panels. Rusted gardening tools lay scattered across workbenches. Vivian was waiting inside, wearing jeans and a simple white blouse. Marcus had never seen her in anything but business attire. She looked younger, more vulnerable. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for meeting me here." Emma immediately began exploring, examining the old plants, the rusted equipment, the patterns of light filtering through the dirty glass. "Your father was building a pulse detonation engine," Marcus said. "A new kind of propulsion system that uses controlled explosions instead of continuous combustion."
I know the basic concept. He talked about it constantly.
"The theory is sound, revolutionary even. If it worked, it would cut fuel consumption by 60% and increase thrust efficiency by a factor of 4. It would change space travel forever."
But it didn't work.
"No, because he was trying to solve the wrong problem." Marcus pulled out his notes. "The engine works. The mathematics are perfect. What he couldn't figure out was the control system, how to manage the detonation sequence precisely enough to prevent catastrophic failure."
Can you figure it out?
"I already did." Vivian's eyes widened.
What?
"The solution is acoustic regulation. You use sound waves to control the timing of the detonations. It's the same principle I used on your car, on the satellites. Everything comes down to frequencies and harmonics. Your father was thinking mechanically. He needed to think musically."
Musically?
An engine is an orchestra. Every component plays a note.
When the notes are in harmony, the engine runs perfectly. When they're out of sync, everything falls apart. Your father built a beautiful orchestra, but he forgot to hire a conductor.
"And you can be the conductor?"
I can design one. A software system that monitors the acoustic signature of the engine in real time and makes micro-adjustments to keep everything in harmony. It's not complicated, conceptually, but it requires someone who understands how to listen.
Vivian sat down heavily on an old wooden bench.
"Do you know what you're saying? Do you understand what this would mean?"
"I understand."
"You're talking about completing my father's life work. The project he died trying to finish."
"Yes."
"Why would you do that? You said you didn't want to go back to this world. You said you wanted to stay invisible."
Marcus looked at Emma, who was humming to herself while examining a collection of old seed packets. "Because my daughter asked me to fix your broken heart."
And I think maybe this is part of how.
Vivian's composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears. The first time Marcus had ever seen her cry.
"I miss him so much," she whispered. "Every day. I walk into his old office and I still expect to see him sitting there. I still pick up the phone to call him before I remember."
"I know."
"No, you don't know. You had Rachel. You had someone who loved you unconditionally. My father loved his work. He loved his legacy. I was always second. Always an extension of the company, not a person in my own right."
That's not true.
How would you know?
Because I read his files. All of them, including the personal notes. Vivian looked up sharply.
What personal notes?
Hidden in the research, encrypted. He left messages for you. I don't think he expected anyone else to find them. Marcus handed her a printed page. Vivian's hands trembled as she read. Her father's handwriting, faded but unmistakable. Vivian, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you're still fighting. I'm sorry I never told you this in person. I was never good with words that weren't equations. But you are my greatest achievement. Not the company, not the satellites, not even this engine I've spent years trying to perfect. You. You are everything I hoped you would become, and more. I was hard on you because the world would be harder. I pushed you because I knew you could take it. But I should have told you that I was proud of you. Every day. Every single day. I love you, sweetheart. I always have. Finish what I started, not because the world needs it, but because I believe you're the only one who can. Dad. Vivian broke. She sobbed, deep, racking sobs that shook her entire body. Years of grief, years of doubt, years of wondering if she'd ever been enough, all pouring out at once. Marcus didn't touch her, didn't try to comfort her with words. He just sat beside her and let her cry. Emma came over, her small face serious. She climbed onto the bench next to Vivian and took her hand. "It's okay to cry," Emma said. "Crying is how you let the hurt out, so it doesn't stay stuck inside." Vivian laughed through her tears. "Did your daddy teach you that?" "No, my mommy did, before she went to heaven." Vivian pulled Emma into a hug. The little girl held on tight, and for a long moment, no one spoke. When Vivian finally composed herself, her face was different. Softer, more open. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't usually—" "Don't apologize," Marcus said. "Everyone needs to fall apart sometimes. It's how we put ourselves back together, stronger." "Is that wisdom from your father?" "From Rachel, actually. She said it the night after Emma was born. I was terrified, convinced I'd be a terrible father. She looked at me and said, 'You're going to mess up. A lot. And then you're going to fix it.' That's what parents do. That's what people do. Fall apart, put yourself together, and keep going." "She sounds amazing." She was. Vivian wiped her eyes. "I want you to build the engine, not as a consultant, as a partner. Your name next to my father's on the patent. Full credit for the solution you created." "I don't need credit." "But you deserve it. You deserve to be seen, Marcus. You've spent 6 years hiding from the world, hiding from yourself. Don't you think it's time to stop?" He looked at Emma. She was watching him with those knowing eyes. "What do you think, sweetheart? Should Daddy stop hiding?" "Yes," Emma said without hesitation. "Mommy always said you were too important to be invisible. She said the world needed people who could listen, and you were the best listener she ever met." Rachel's words, coming through their daughter, like a message from beyond. "Okay," Marcus said quietly. "I'll do it, but on my conditions." "Name them." "First, I work from home. I'm not coming into an office. I'm not traveling. Emma's life doesn't change." "Agreed." "Second, Emma stays involved. If she wants to help, she helps. She has a gift, Vivian. I don't understand it, but I won't ignore it." "Agreed." "Third, this project isn't about profit. It's about your father's dream. Technology that serves everyone. If we're going to build something that changes the world, it should change it for people who need it most." Vivian smiled. The real smile. The one that transformed her face. "My father would have liked you very much." "I hope so." They shook hands. But this time, it felt less like a business deal and more like a promise. The months that followed were the most intense of Marcus's life. He set up a workspace in the cottage, computers, engineering software, audio equipment. Emma's drawings covered the walls, side by side with complex schematics. Vivian came by twice a week. She'd arrive after work, still in her business clothes, and stay for hours. Sometimes they worked on the engine. Sometimes they just talked. She told him about her childhood, the pressure, the expectations, the father who showed love through demands instead of words. He told her about Rachel, the way she laughed, the way she could make any room feel like home, the way losing her had hollowed him out and left him wondering if he'd ever feel whole again. Emma observed everything with her quiet attentiveness. She'd make them tea. She'd point out when Marcus was getting frustrated and needed a break. She'd ask Vivian questions about her day with genuine curiosity. "Your daughter is teaching me how to be human again," Vivian said one evening. "She has that effect on people." "How does she do it? How does an 8-year-old have more emotional intelligence than adults 3 times her age?" "I used to wonder the same thing about Rachel. Some people are just connected differently. They feel things the rest of us miss." "You feel things too, Marcus. I've seen you work. You listen to machines the way most people listen to music. That's not normal. That's extraordinary. Emma got it from somewhere. She got it from you, and from her mother. She's the best of both of you." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He'd spent so long thinking of himself as broken, as damaged, as a man who'd failed his wife and was barely holding on for his daughter's sake. The idea that he might have something valuable to offer, that felt foreign, dangerous. Vivian seemed to read his thoughts. "You're allowed to be more than one thing, you know. You can be Emma's father and a brilliant engineer. You can grieve Rachel and build something new. Those aren't contradictions. What if I fail? What if I build this engine and it doesn't work, and I've wasted months that I could have spent with Emma? Then we try again, and again, and again, until it works, or until we're certain it can't." That's a very optimistic outlook for someone who used to fire people without flinching. Vivian laughed. "Maybe you're rubbing off on me." The breakthrough came on a Thursday night. Marcus had been working for 14 hours straight, testing variations of the acoustic control system in simulation. Nothing was working. The harmonics were too complex, the variables too numerous. Every time he thought he had it, something would destabilize. Emma had been asleep for hours. Vivian had gone home. The cottage was silent except for the hum of computers. Marcus was ready to give up. He pushed back from his desk, rubbing his eyes. Rachel's photo sat on the shelf beside him, the only picture he kept out. She was laughing in it, caught mid-motion, her hair flying around her face. "I don't know how to do this," he said to her. "I thought I could, but I can't. I'm sorry." He sat there in the silence, waiting for an answer that wouldn't come. Then Emma's voice from the doorway. "Daddy?" He turned. She was standing there in her pajamas, her airplane book clutched against her chest. "What are you doing up, sweetheart?" "The machines woke me. They're frustrated." "What machines?" "Your computers. They're trying to tell you something, but you're not listening." Marcus looked at his screens. Lines of code. Simulation results. Failure after failure. "I am listening, Emma. I've been listening for months." "No, you're looking. That's different." She padded over to his desk and climbed into his lap. "Close your eyes." "Emma." "Close your eyes, Daddy. Please." He closed his eyes. "Now listen, not to the computers, to the quiet underneath." He tried. He really tried. But all he could hear was the hum of electronics, the creak of the old cottage, the distant sound of wind. I don't hear anything, sweetheart. That's because you're trying too hard. Mommy used to say that. She said you tried so hard to hear everything that you forgot to let the sounds come to you. Rachel had said that years ago, when they were first married and he was struggling with a project that wouldn't come together. Just wait, Emma whispered. The answer will come. It always does. Marcus sat there with his eyes closed and his daughter in his lap. He stopped trying to solve the problem. He stopped analyzing. He stopped thinking. He just listened. And then, so faintly he almost missed it, he heard it. Not a sound, not exactly. More like a pattern. A rhythm hidden in the noise of his own equipment. His heartbeat. Emma's breathing. The oscillation of the computer fans. The subtle vibration of the cottage settling. Everything was connected. Everything was part of the same system. His eyes snapped open. Oh my God. What is it, Daddy? I've been designing the control system to regulate the engine from outside, like a conductor standing in front of an orchestra. But that's wrong. The conductor should be inside the engine, part of the system, responding to the music as it's being played. Emma smiled. The engine needs to listen to itself. Exactly. A self-regulating feedback loop. The acoustic sensors don't just monitor, they participate. They become part of the harmony. He started typing. The code poured out of him, faster than he could think. Emma watched, her head resting against his shoulder. By dawn, he had a working model. By noon, the simulations were running clean. By evening, he had called Vivian. It works, he said. What? The control system. I figured it out. Emma figured it out. It works. Vivian was silent for so long he thought the call had dropped. Are you sure? She finally asked. I'm sure. We need to build a prototype, a physical test. But the math is solid. The simulations are perfect. Vivian, this is real. This is going to work. He heard her breath catch. Then she was laughing and crying at the same time. My father, she said. My father would be so proud. He already was. He told you so in that letter. I know, but now I believe it. Marcus looked at Emma, who had fallen asleep at his desk, her head pillowed on her arms. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For believing in me. For giving me a reason to stop hiding. You gave yourself the reason, Marcus. I just reminded you it was there. She hung up. Marcus carried Emma to her bed, tucked her in, and kissed her forehead. Thank you, sweetheart, he whispered, for everything. Emma murmured something in her sleep. It might have been, You're welcome, Daddy. Or it might have been something else entirely. Either way, Marcus Bennett went to sleep that night feeling something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Hope. Real, unguarded, terrifying hope. And for once, he didn't push it away. The prototype took 6 months to build. Vivian funded it personally. Not through the company, not through investors, just her own money. She said she didn't want anyone else's fingerprints on her father's dream. Marcus worked from the cottage, designing every component, testing every system. Emma helped when she could, pointing out imbalances that his instruments missed, listening for harmonics that existed only in her extraordinary perception. The engine was beautiful, sleek and powerful, smaller than anyone expected, capable of generating thrust that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. They built it in a converted warehouse on the edge of the estate, away from prying eyes. On the night before the first test, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch of the cottage, looking up at the stars. Rachel had loved the stars. She used to say they were proof that the universe was bigger than any problem they could face. You're thinking about her. He turned. Vivian was walking toward him, wrapped in a coat against the cool night air. "How did you know I was out here?" "I couldn't sleep either. Saw your light was off, but your door was open. Figured you'd be somewhere brooding." "I don't brood." "You absolutely brood. You're the broodiest person I've ever met." She sat down beside him on the porch steps. "What are you thinking about?" "Tomorrow. Whether it's going to work. Whether I'm ready for everything to change again." "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good. That means you care." She pulled her coat tighter. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When my father died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. I thought I'd just go through the motions forever. Running the company, making deals, being the ice queen everyone expected me to be." She paused. "Then you fixed my car." "That was just mechanical work." "No, it wasn't. It was the first time in 3 years that someone saw through me. You didn't treat me like a CEO or a billionaire or my father's daughter. You treated me like a person who was scared and angry and completely lost. You threw money at my feet." "I know. I was horrible. And you still helped me." She turned to look at him. "Why?" Marcus thought about it. "Because Emma asked me to." "That's the only reason?" "No." He met her eyes. "Because I saw something in you. Something broken. And I recognized it. Because I was broken too." "Are you still broken?" "I don't know. Maybe. But it feels different now. Like the pieces are starting to fit together again, even if they don't look the same as before." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she reached over and took his hand. Marcus didn't pull away. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said, "I want you to know that you've already changed my life. You and Emma. You've given me something I didn't think I'd ever have again." "What's that?" "A family." The word hung in the air between them, heavy, significant. "Vivian, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you. That's what you've become to me. Family. And I don't want to lose that, no matter what happens with the engine." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You won't lose it." "Promise?" "I promise." They sat there until dawn broke over the estate, still holding hands, watching the stars fade into daylight. The test was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Only 5 people were present: Marcus, Vivian, Emma, and 2 trusted engineers who had signed confidentiality agreements. No press, no fanfare, just the people who needed to be there. The engine sat in the center of the warehouse, connected to monitoring equipment and fuel lines. It looked almost organic, curves and angles that seemed to flow into each other like a living thing. "It's pretty," Emma said. "It sounds happy." "It's not running yet, sweetheart." "I know, but it wants to. It's been waiting." Marcus knelt beside her. "Are you ready?" "Yes, Daddy. Are you?" He looked at the engine, at Vivian standing with her arms crossed, her face a mask of controlled anxiety. At the 2 engineers double-checking their readings. "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." He walked to the control station. His hands were steady, even though his heart was pounding. "Beginning ignition sequence," he announced. The first phase activated. Fuel began flowing through the lines. The acoustic sensors came online, their readings scrolling across his monitor. "Harmonics stable," one of the engineers reported. "All systems nominal." "Proceeding to phase 2. The engine hummed. Not a mechanical hum, something deeper, richer, like a note held perfectly in tune. Emma closed her eyes and smiled. "There it is, the singing." Phase 2 complete. Preparing for detonation sequence. This was the moment. The breakthrough or the failure. The point where Edward Ashford's engine had always collapsed. Marcus looked at Vivian. She nodded once. He pressed the button. The first detonation fired. A controlled explosion, perfectly timed, generating thrust that pushed against the test restraints. The acoustic control system responded instantly, adjusting the timing of the next detonation by microseconds. "Sequence stable," the engineer said, disbelief in his voice. "My God, it's actually stable." Another detonation, another adjustment. The engine was singing now, each explosion a note in a symphony of controlled power. "Thrust output exceeding projections," the second engineer reported. "Fuel efficiency at 63% above baseline. This is impossible." "Not impossible," Marcus said quietly. "Just different." The test ran for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of perfect operation. 3 minutes of an engine that should have torn itself apart, running smoother than anything any of them had ever seen. Then Marcus shut it down. The warehouse fell silent. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Vivian started laughing. She laughed until tears streamed down her face, until she was doubled over with the force of it. "It works," she gasped. "It actually works." Emma ran to Marcus and threw her arms around him. "Daddy, you did it! The engine is so happy!" He held his daughter tight and looked at the machine they had built. His design, Emma's intuition, Edward Ashford's dream. "We did it," he said. "All of us. Together." Vivian walked over to them, wiping her eyes. "My father would have given anything to see this." "He did see it. Through you. Through the notes he left. Through the research he started. This isn't just our achievement, Vivian. It's his, too." She pulled both of them into a hug, Marcus and Emma together. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you both." The news couldn't be contained forever. Within a month, word had leaked. A revolutionary propulsion system. A billionaire heiress and an unknown engineer. A little girl who could hear machines singing. The press went insane. Marcus refused all interviews. Vivian handled the public side, but she always gave him credit, always mentioned his name, always called it the Bennett Ashford engine. "You should be the face of this," she told him. "You deserve the recognition." "I don't want recognition. I want to be home when Emma gets off the school bus." "You can have both." "No, I can't. Not the way you mean." He looked at her. "I've been down that road. I know where it leads. Fame and interviews and constant attention. That's not life. That's performance. I won't perform anymore." "Even if it means the world never knows who you really are?" "The people who matter know. Emma knows. You know. That's enough." Vivian studied him for a long moment. "You're the strangest man I've ever met." "You've said that before." "It's still true." The money came next. Licensing deals, government contracts, international partnerships. The Bennett Ashford engine was worth billions, more than either of them had imagined. Marcus took enough to secure Emma's future. College fund, trust account, a new cottage on the estate, slightly bigger than the old one, with a workshop attached. The rest he gave away. Education programs for underprivileged kids, scholarships for students who couldn't afford engineering school, funding for community centers and after-school programs. "You're donating your fortune," Vivian said, shaking her head. "Do you have any idea how insane that sounds?" "It's not my fortune. It's Emma's inheritance. She gets what she needs. The rest goes to people who need it more." "Most people would keep it."
build an empire, leave a dynasty.
I'm not most people. And Emma doesn't need a dynasty. She needs a father who comes home for dinner. Vivian fell silent. When she spoke again, her voice was soft.
Rachel was right about you.
What do you mean? You said she told you to stop trying to save the world and start trying to save yourself. But I don't think that's what she meant. I think she meant that saving yourself and saving the world aren't opposites. I think she meant you could do both, but only if you stopped running from who you really were. Marcus didn't respond, but something shifted in his chest. A weight he'd been carrying for 6 years, finally starting to lift. A year passed. Emma turned 9. They celebrated with a small party, just Marcus, Vivian, and a few friends Emma had made at school. Cake with too much frosting. Presents wrapped in newspaper because Emma thought fancy wrapping paper was wasteful. Vivian gave her a custom-built listening device, the same technology from the engine, miniaturized into something a child could use. It amplifies sound frequencies, Vivian explained, so you can hear the things that are usually too quiet. Emma hugged her so hard she almost knocked her over. Thank you, Miss Vivian. Just Vivian, sweetheart. I told you. Thank you, Vivian. After the party, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus and Vivian sat on the porch of the new cottage. The stars were out again. They always seemed brighter here. Can I ask you something? Vivian said. Always. That night in the garage, when I told you I'd marry you if you started the car, did you ever think I was serious? Marcus laughed. You were mocking me. I was, but part of me meant it. Part of me was so desperate, so lost, that I would have done anything for someone who could fix things. She paused. You fixed a lot more than my car, Marcus. You fixed yourself. I just helped. Is that what we've been doing? Helping each other? He turned to look at her. She was beautiful in the starlight. Not the cold beauty of the billionaire he'd first met, but something warmer, more real. What are you asking, Vivian? I'm asking if you ever think about us as more than whatever this is. Marcus was quiet for a long time. I think about Rachel, he said finally. Every day. I think about what she would want for me, for Emma, for whatever time we have left. And what do you think she'd want? She'd want me to be happy. She'd want Emma to have a complete family. She'd want me to stop punishing myself for not being there when she needed me. Have you stopped? I'm trying. It's hard. Vivian reached over and took his hand, the same way she had on the night before the test. I'm not asking you to replace her, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking if there's room. For me. For something new. Marcus looked at their intertwined hands, at the cottage where his daughter slept, at the stars Rachel had loved so much. I made you a promise once, he said, that you wouldn't lose me, that I'd be here. You did. I meant it. But I think maybe, he took a breath, I think maybe I'm ready to mean something more. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? No, I'm terrified. But Emma told me once that courage is just being scared and doing the thing anyway. She's a smart kid. The smartest. He leaned in and kissed her, soft, gentle, a question more than a statement. She kissed him back. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. The real smile. The one that transformed her face. For the record, she said, you did start the car. That was over a year ago. I know, but I told you I always keep my word. Are you proposing to me right now? I'm reminding you that you have a standing offer. She grinned. No pressure. Marcus laughed. For the first time in years, the sound didn't feel forced. "Let's start with dinner," he said. "See where it goes from there." Dinner sounds perfect. They sat together on the porch until the sky began to lighten, talking about everything and nothing, making plans neither of them had ever expected to make. Inside the cottage, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming of engines that sang and machines that listened, and a world where broken things could always be fixed if you just paid attention. 2 years later, they married. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends. Emma was the flower girl, scattering petals with more enthusiasm than precision. Marcus wore a suit for the first time in nearly a decade. He tugged at the collar constantly. "You look uncomfortable," Vivian said. "I am uncomfortable. I told you I'd never wear a suit." "You told me you'd never wear a suit to work. This isn't work. This is the happiest day of my life." "Fine, but I'm changing right after the ceremony." "Deal." They exchanged vows on the estate grounds, near the old greenhouse where everything had changed. Vivian had it restored. New glass, new plants, but the same bones. A reminder of where they'd come from. Her vows were eloquent, polished, the kind of words a woman who ran a billion-dollar company would say. His vows were simple. "I spent 6 years being invisible, hiding from the world, hiding from myself. Then I met you, and you threw money at my feet, and my daughter said your heart was broken, and I thought, maybe 2 broken people can fix each other. Maybe that's how it works." He looked at Emma, standing beside them with tears streaming down her face. "Rachel taught me how to listen. Emma taught me how to hope. And you taught me how to trust again. I don't know what comes next. I don't have all the answers. But I know I want to figure it out with you. Both of you. For as long as I have." The minister pronounced them married. Emma cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Marcus danced with his daughter while Vivian watched, her heart full to bursting. "Daddy," Emma said, "are you happy?" "Yes, sweetheart, very happy." "Is Mommy happy too?" Marcus looked up at the sky. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. "Yeah," he said softly, "I think she is." "Good, because I want everyone to be happy. That's my wish." "That's a good wish, sweetheart." "I know. I'm good at wishes," she grinned. "And at listening. And at finding broken things that need fixing." "You certainly are." "Daddy?" "Yes?" "I'm glad you stopped being invisible. I like it better when people can see you." Marcus pulled her close. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." The years that followed were good ones. The Bennett Ashford engine changed the world, just as Edward Ashford had dreamed. Space travel became cheaper, cleaner, more accessible. The satellites that had almost failed now powered communication networks across the globe. Marcus never went back to working full-time. He consulted when interesting problems arose, always from home, always with Emma's input when she wanted to give it. Vivian learned to balance her empire with her family. She delegated more, trusted more, came home for dinner every night. Emma grew up smart and kind and extraordinary. She went to MIT like her father, studied acoustic engineering, wrote papers that people would still be reading decades later. But she never forgot how to listen. On the 10th anniversary of the day he'd fixed Vivian's car, Marcus stood in the garage where it had all begun. The Ferrari was still there, still gleaming, still running perfectly. Vivian found him there, standing beside it. "Remembering?" she asked. "Always." "Any regrets?" He thought about it, about Rachel, about the years of hiding, about the night he'd walked into this garage with his daughter and changed everything. "No," he said. "Not anymore." "Good." She walked over and stood beside him. "Because I have something to tell you." "What's that?" Emma called. She finished the project. "The propulsion enhancement?" "Yes." She said it worked even better than she expected. She said the engines are singing louder than ever. Marcus smiled. His daughter, carrying on the work, making it her own. "She's remarkable," he said. "She gets it from her father. She gets it from Rachel. She gets it from all of us." Vivian took his hand. "That's how families work. We carry pieces of each other, and those pieces become something new." Marcus looked at the woman he'd married, the woman who'd thrown money at his feet, and mocked him, and challenged him, and loved him. "Start it," he said. "What?" "The car. Start it. For old time's sake." Vivian laughed. "You're ridiculous." "I know. Start it anyway." She slid into the driver's seat, turned the key. The engine roared to life. Perfect. Pure. Just like the first time. Marcus closed his eyes and listened. He heard the harmonics, the rhythm, the song that machines sing when everything is exactly as it should be. He heard Emma, somewhere far away, listening to her own engines, her own music. He heard Rachel, her voice gentle in his memory. "Stop trying to save the world. Start trying to save yourself." He'd done both. In the end, they were the same thing. Vivian stepped out of the car and walked over to him. "What are you smiling about?" "Everything," he said. "Absolutely everything." She kissed him. The engine purred behind them. The sun streamed through the garage windows. And Marcus Bennett, once invisible, once broken, once certain he would never be whole again, stood in the light and let the world see him. Because in the end, that was the lesson he'd learned. Not from MIT, not from military projects, not from all the machines he'd ever fixed. From a woman who'd mocked him. From a daughter who could hear things no one else could hear. From a wife he'd lost, and a love he'd found, and a life he'd never expected to build. The lesson was simple. The most important things in this world, the engines that matter, the systems that sustain us, the connections that make us human, they don't work because they're perfect. They work because someone takes the time to listen, to really, truly listen. To the quiet voices, to the hidden harmonics, to the people who seem invisible until you look closer. That's what Rachel had taught him. That's what Emma had shown him. That's what Vivian had helped him remember. And standing there in the garage where everything began, Marcus Bennett finally understood. He was never meant to be invisible. He was meant to be exactly who he was. A listener, a healer, a father, a husband. A man who could hear what the world needed and found the courage to answer. That was his gift. That was his purpose. That was the only legacy worth leaving. And it was more than enough. The end.